Hi, this is Blake.
Hi, this is Cameron. We welcome you to yet another episode of TrustTalks.
Today, we're going to try and untangle a couple of terms that you hear a lot, especially in business and compliance. Certification, attestation.
That's right.
If you've ever sort of scratched your head wondering, what is the actual difference? And maybe more importantly, why should I care? Well, stick around.
Yeah, navigating all these rules and standards, it can feel like alphabet soup sometimes, can it? Especially when terms sound so much alike. So our aim today is, well, to clear things up a bit.
Exactly. The mission for this deep dive is simple. Clearly, explain compliance certification, explain attestation, look at what they're for, and why getting the difference really matters for, your organization.
Mm-hmm.
And we're basing this on a really helpful article from TrustCloud docs called Compliance Certification versus Attestation. What is the difference? So let's dive in.
Let's do it. So first up, compliance certification. What is it? Well, think of it as a formal process, pretty thorough too. You have an accredited third party, basically, an independent group with the right credentials who comes in and assesses if your organization is really following specific standards or regulations, sometimes even best practices.
Right. So this isn't just a quick glance. They're properly digging into your policies, your procedures, the controls you use.
Exactly. Deep examination. And that word accredited is key. It means they have the recognized authority, the expertise to actually judge if you've hit the mark,
Got it. And if you pass muster, what happens then?
Well, the result is a formal certificate. It's like an official thumbs up saying, yep, they comply with standard X.
Like a seal of approval.
Precisely. The article uses that exact phrase, seal of approval, confirms your operations line up with the rules.
And it's not permanent, right? You mentioned that before.
Good point. No, typically they have an expiry date, so you often need reevaluation, audits down the line to keep that certification valid. It's ongoing.
Okay, so it's definitely more than just ticking boxes. It sounds like a real commitment to GRC governance, risk management, compliance, being proactive about it.
Absolutely proactive. The journey itself, well, it usually starts with looking at where you are now in assessment. Then you figure out the gaps where you fall short. That's the gap analysis.
Makes sense.
Then comes the work, implementing changes, fixing things, and finally, that big, rigorous audit by the certifying body.
Sounds like quite the process. So why bother? What are the real benefits of going through all that?
Well, several big ones. For starters, it shouts commitment. It tells customers, partners, regulators, everyone that you take these standards seriously. That builds huge trust.
Yeah, I can see that. Confidence boost.
Definitely. And honestly, in a lot of fields, having the right certifications can be a serious competitive advantage. It can open doors.
Okay, so what kind of certifications are we talking about? The article mentions quite a few, right?
Oh, yeah. It gives a great breakdown. For example, in information security and data privacy, a huge area right now. You've got things like ISO 27001. That's for your overall information security management system.
Right, heard that one.
And then ISO 27001, which is more focused specifically on privacy management. There's also SOC 2, very common for service providers, especially cloud services. It covers controls around security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, privacy, the works.
Okay, SOC 2 and PCI DSS, that's for payments.
Exactly. Payment card industry data security standard. If you handle credit cards, you need to know about PCI DSS.
And it's not just tech and data, is it?
Not at all. Think health and safety. In the U.S., you have HIPAA, protecting health information.
Crucial.
And OSHA for workplace safety. Then there's quality management. ISO 9001 is probably the most famous standard globally for that.
Right.
And for medical devices, there's a specific one, ISO 13485. Even environmental stuff has standards, like ISO 14001 or EMAS in Europe.
Wow, okay, it really covers a lot of ground.
It does, and there's more. Corporate social responsibility, SA 8000 for workplace conditions, ISO 26000 for general social responsibility guidance. Industry-specific ones, too, like CMMI for process improvement, ISEAL for managing IT services, FSSC 22000 in food safety.
Food safety, okay.
Financial compliance, think SOX for public companies, IFRS for international accounting, even energy management with ISO 50001. It really shows how standards permeate almost every part of business.
That's quite a list. So, just to recap the key features of certification. It's always a third party, an accredited one.
Yes, critical point. Third-party validation.
And it's against a defined standard,
Right.
like ISO or SOC2.
Correct. Predefined frameworks or standards.
You need proof, documentation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Documentation is essential to demonstrate you're actually doing what the standard requires.
And it's not a one-and-done thing. Ongoing compliance, periodic checks.
Exactly. Maintenance and audits are part of the deal.
Okay. The article also circled back to a few examples, just to hammer it home. ISO 27001 again.
Right. Getting that shows you have a solid system, an ISMS, to manage information security risks.
PCI DSS.
Validates you handle card data, securely storing it, processing it, transmitting it, and HIPAA.
Verifies that healthcare players are protecting patient health information properly. These certs give tangible proof.
Got it. That paints a really clear picture of certification, that formal, audited seal of approval. So, now, what about attestation? How is that different?
Okay, attestation. The TrustCloud article defines this one a bit differently. It's more like a formal statement, an assertion.
A statement. Made by who?
Often by a qualified professional, think like a CPA or an auditor. They're affirming that certain specific things, assertions, statements, controls are accurate or compliant.
Okay, so the big difference seems to be it relies more on the person making the statement, their expertise and credibility.
Exactly. That's the core contrast. It's less about that comprehensive external audit leading to a certificate and more about trusting the judgment of the attesting party for specific claims.
So it's like a professional vouching. Based on my review, this specific aspect looks correct.
Precisely. Their professional reputation is on the line. Interesting. And what does the article say are the key parts of attestation, especially in compliance?
Well, some similarities to certification pop up. You still need thorough documentation of what you're doing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Regular assessments, continuous monitoring, those are still important. Transparency for stakeholders, telling them what's going on with compliance, that's key too.
Right.
And detailed reporting on your efforts. But here's an interesting twist. The article notes that sometimes existing certifications might be used as part of the evidence for an attestation.
Oh, okay. So they can work together. You might have an ISO cert and then an auditor provides an attestation that relies, in part, on that certification.
Potentially, yes.
Wow.
It shows how these aren't always mutually exclusive. The trust in the attester, though, that's really paramount. Stakeholders are banking on their professional opinion, and the output is usually different, too. Instead of a standardized certificate, you often get a customized report. Yeah, tailored to what specific stakeholders or regulators need to know. It focuses on the specific assertions being attested to.
Can you give some concrete examples, like the ones for certification?
Sure. SOC reports are a classic example of attestation.
Ah, SOC again. But this is the report itself.
Yes, SOC1, SOC2, SOC3 reports are issued by auditors, usually CPA firms. They provide assurance about controls at a service organization, controls related to financial reporting, or the SOC2 trust services criteria, security, availability, etc.
Okay, so the SOC report is the attestation. Got it.
Right. And beyond SOC, there are lots of other attestation engagements. An auditor might be engaged to attest to, say, the accuracy of financial statements or compliance with specific regulations or how effective cybersecurity controls are, or if data privacy practices are up to snuff.
Wow, okay, so quite versatile.
Very. And in each case, the result is an attestation report where the professional gives their opinion.
Okay, I think I'm getting the difference now. Certification. Formal audit, third-party, accredited body, predefined standard, results in a certificate. Attestation. Formal statement, qualified professional, specific assertions or controls, relies on a tester's credibility, results in a report.
You nailed it. That's the core distinction.
So the million-dollar question then, how does an organization choose? When do you go for certification versus attestation? They both sound useful.
They are, and the article gives some good pointers here. First, think about scope and objectives. What are you trying to achieve with compliance?
Right.
If you need to show broad alignment with a major recognized standard like ISO 27001, certification is probably your best bet. It's comprehensive.
Okay.
But if you need to reassure specific stakeholders about, say, one particular control or process they care about, maybe a targeted attestation is more efficient and direct.
That makes sense. Broad validation versus specific assurance. What else?
Stakeholder expectations are huge. What do your customers, partners, or regulators actually need or expect to see? Some industries basically demand certain certifications. It's table stakes. In other cases, a detailed attestation report might actually give stakeholders more of the specific comfort they're looking for. You have to know your audience.
Right. Got to check the industry norms and what your key partners require. And what about, the practical side, time, money, effort?
Always a factor. The article mentions resource considerations. Certification can be, well, pretty involved. Time-consuming, requires significant effort, both internal and external.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Attestation engagements can be more flexible. You might be able to scope them more narrowly, potentially making them quicker or less resource-intensive, depending on what's being attested to. But you still need the qualified professional, of course.
So weigh the effort versus the benefit and the specific need.
Exactly. And finally, the article advises looking at industry best practices and any regulatory guidelines. Are there rules dictating one or the other? What are your peers doing?
Good point. Maybe talk to experts in your field, too.
Definitely. Consulting with compliance pros who know your specific industry can be invaluable in making that call.
So it really comes down to understanding your specific situation, your goals, who you need to assure, what resources you have, and what the landscape looks like in your sector.